Okay, so section 3 of the research ethics application form is all about your participants. First section here, inclusion criteria. And this is just where you tell us the details on who will be recruited for your study. So what's the population? What are some of the unique characteristics that you are looking for your study? So this could be, you're doing a study and you only want a certain age range for people to be a part of your study, a particular experience or status within society. So it's just those particular details. So who's included in your study? The next section is exclusion criteria. So if there are any exclusion criteria, reasons for why someone would not qualify or just be right for your study, please indicate that. So for example, going back to age example, so say you're only studying youth, 18 to 24, for example. I know that's not technically youth, young adults. So that's your age range. And so your exclusion criteria in that situation would be anyone over, 25 and over. So if you do have exclusion criteria like that, please let us know the rationale for that criteria. So why are you excluding people over the age of 24? And another potential exclusion that applies to more studies than I think we think about would be, for example, a language exclusion. So are there people, if they do not speak English, they are necessarily excluded from your study if you're only delivering the research and the research materials are only in English. So we've included this note here, and one thing to keep in mind as you're designing your study and you're going about the recruitment, that there may be some instances where how you recruit and how you even design the study might be unfairly excluding some groups of participants from your study. And if including them would actually mean that you have better data, you should think about some ways to try to include them in the study so as not to unfairly exclude them and unjustly exclude them. So for instance, the language element there, if your study is such that you're intending to have some benefits for the broader community, so you need as wide a population as possible to give you some information via their participation, but you're not delivering your research in more than one language, you could think about getting translators, getting people to conduct the research in another language when needed to bring in more participants there. So this is something that Research Ethics Board looks at, and particularly in kind of community-based research that has this broader application, that we should really always be thinking about the broadest sort of inclusion in our study there. All right, next section here, anticipated number of participants. So this is just a rough number or number range of how many participants you would like to gather in for your study. We don't hold you to this and make sure that you are meeting this number, but this is kind of your best guess and your thinking ideally number here. A note, if you're doing focus groups and focus groups, we want the number of people per group plus the number of groups. So often when someone is doing a focus group study, they hold more than one focus group with smaller numbers of people. So we want to know both, how many people are you anticipating having in each focus group session, plus the number of group sessions that you're going to be holding, not just a whole number of 100 participants. So we want to know how you're breaking that down per group. And the reason for that is less ethically, but more kind of good research design is that focus groups are best when you have a smaller group of people to facilitate that conversation. So we may, offer some, recommendations if we think that number per group is too high or too low there. All right, I think that's it for number of participants, relationship between the researcher and participants. So this is where we want to know anyone who is interacting with the participants, collecting data from them, knowing who's participating and analyzing the data. We want to know if there's any existing relationships there. And so this is back to that dual role research that we addressed, I think, in the first section here. And so this, you only really need to put anything here if there is that relationship, if there's a dual role at all. And if there is, what are some of the steps that you're going to take to minimize the risks that could be associated with that, or even perception of risks. And so we've included here, for example, if there's a dual role research situation, how are you going to avoid the perception of coercion or actual coercion in getting people to participate in the study, conflict of interest, that sort of thing. And so this is where, definitely, you're not intending, hopefully, not hopefully, but definitely you should not be intending to, actively coerce people and force people to participate in your study. Given that relationship, in some cases, there, even if you're not intending it, there might be that perception on the part of the participant or potential participant thinking about that. So that, for example, is often the case and something we need to think about as instructors who are doing research in the area of scholarship of teaching and learning and using our students as participants. Just given that nature, there could be the sense of, the student feels obligated to participate because you're their instructor and they want to look good in your eyes, or there could be a sense of, they want to participate, or they'll participate and they want to give, what they think is the answer or the data that you want. So you need to take some steps to mitigate those risks there. There's particularly in the case of scholarship of teaching and learning, there's a lot of guidance and advice on how to design a good SOTL project. Research ethics board will give you some suggestions, the Research Common, and so this is what we're looking for: is how are you going to create kind of that distance between the two roles so that it's good ethical research there. And in the case of other types of relationships and dual role research there, the scholarship of teaching and learning advice on how to manage that could easily be transferable over to other situations. So, all right, last section here in participants is rewards or compensation for participation. So we want to know, if there's going to be any incentive or reward, I guess, for participation in your project. So that's, sometimes we give all participants a brief, small, token, gift card, gift, token item, could be a draw, their names get entered into a draw for a prize or a gift card, that sort of thing. Could also be reimbursement for their time and expenses. So paying for parking, for example. So whatever that is, we would like for you to give us that information, as well as a rationale for not only the amount, but the type of incentive that you are giving or reward that you're giving. And as it is noted here, with specific attention to measures to avoid that undue influence or coercion, so that, or anything that could negatively impact on that voluntariness of participating in research there. So provide us with that particular detail and information. And particularly if the incentive is bonus marks, as it would be in class, research being done in, RDP or another post-secondary there. So in that particular case, if students are offered, 1% bonus mark for participating in a study, we want to know that there are some other opportunities for those participants, for those students to earn the same amount of bonus marks by doing another activity. So if the only opportunity for a student to earn this 1% bonus mark, for instance, is to participate in your study, and there's no other way for them to earn a bonus mark, that is undue influence and coercion to participate in your study. So there needs to be, for that voluntariness to be respected, there needs to be another activity or opportunity for students to earn the same amount of bonus marks by doing something else that is comparable to, participating in a study. In whatever form that is. So we want you to describe that there are these other opportunities and what those sort of look like there. Okay, and we've included this. This is a new section, a new question, or a new prompt on these application forms, because this is often something that we see, particularly for SOTL research, and so we need to see this really laid out for us. So, because we're often asking questions of that nature. All right, that's participants, and next video will be benefits and risks.